Well, there is no defense for Mother Nature right now in Chicago, but the Bears have a new defensive coordinator, and after a couple of weeks of adding other people, they finally let Sean Desai address the media this week. He's Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune. I'm Dionne Miller from ABC7. What'd you think, Dan?
I think that Shawn is confident. I think that Shawn is intelligent. I think that Shawn feels like he has an ability here to tap into this defense that, as we know, is full of talent, right? And full of potential playmakers and full of stars, right? There are stars on this defense. And Sean Desai now, after sitting beside Vic Fangio for 4 seasons and seeing what defense could be like with mostly this nucleus of talent in 2018, when the Bears had the #1 defense in the NFL, has the task now of trying to get them back toward that level again. I know he's excited to get going. I know he's eager to get going. We just have to figure out what it all means and how much of Vic's influence and Vic's endorsement and Vic's sort of fingerprints will be on this defense when the Bears take the field again in 2021. I think, as we've talked about before, as this organization tries to answer the quarterback position, the one thing that they need to be able to hang their hat on is playing high-level defense. It hasn't happened enough over the llast 2 years. It's why they've been 8-8 and 8-8. And now in order to get back to double-digit wins, you have to figure out how to get this defense playing at a high level. Shawn, your move, right?
Totally. And I'm going to admit something here. I mean, we're among friends, right? I have had a crush on Vic Fangio since he was the defensive coordinator of the Bears because he's so good at it. He's genius. He's a genius. So I think my #1 piece of advice for Sean Desai is you need a little 5x7 of Mr. Vic sitting next to you when you're calling things and a bracelet that says, what would Vic do? Because you have to think that way because he put those players in the best position they could be to succeed based on what they do well, not based on what his scheme was. That, I think, was so telling. And even when Desai was talking to us this week about the way he's going to approach things and how much is it like Vic, he said, he's like, I saw him do that. I saw him take these guys. And just by sheer observation. Now, my question is, how's Mike Pettine fit into all this? Like, what is his role in this? And I know that, so is Desai in charge? Is Pettine a sounding board? How much are his fingerprints going to be allowed to be on this? Desai is the defensive coordinator, yes, but younger than me, younger than a lot of people, and lots of energy, and never been in a leadership coaching role like this. So how much is this a alongside, or is this a, I don't know what you do here, Mike. What would you do? Who's he? What's the chain of command?
I truly believe that Mike Pettine is here to be a sounding board, and that the hope is, the best case scenario is that Sean Desai does in 2021 what Brandon Staley did with the Rams in 2020, right? And took on a coordinator role and put his fingerprints all over it and got a defense full of talent playing at an elite level. The Rams were terrific last season. Brandon Staley was rewarded kindly for it and is now a head coach just a few years after leaving Chicago and Vic's staff. And so that's the hope, that Shawn can have similar success, that he has a similar ability to connect with players, has a similar ability to see the game through a lens that allows your defense to be at a strength. And Mike Pettine, with his years of experience, can be a sounding board. I thought it was interesting that Shawn said that Pettine won't only be a sounding board for the defense, but he can be a resource for Matt Nagy in the offense. And that's notable because we've seen Mike Pettine's defense over the last 3 years put a straitjacket on the Bears offense, right? And so now he can go over to Matt's side of the building and say, hey, you know, when you were trying to run this is why it didn't work. And you know, when you scored only 3 points in those games that you played against us, here's what we were doing to make your quarterback uncomfortable and how you couldn't get anything unlocked. So Mike Pettine's voice will be very valuable inside Halas Hall, but this is Sean Desai's show to run on defense. And I'll give you a couple stats. I know you like it when I pull out the stats.
I love it.
Numbers, go. In 2018 that the Bears had the #1 defense in the NFL, the 50 sacks, the 36 takeaways, the 27 interceptions. In the 2 years under Chuck Pagano, the Bears had 67 sacks, which ranked 22nd in the NFL. Wow. They had 20 interceptions, which ranked 25th. They had 37 takeaways, which ranked 26th. And so what that tells you is that there was a regression, which Sean Desai acknowledged during his introductory press conference earlier this week and said, look, we've got to get ourselves in position to make more of those big-time plays that change games. It's the sacks, it's the takeaways. Those things haven't happened on a frequent enough basis the last 2 seasons to have this defense positioned to be one of the more special defenses in the league. They've still been good. They just haven't been special. And this team needs its defense to be special. Sean's got to figure out a way to do that.
Well, and my question is, why didn't it work with Pagano? I mean, they all loved him. He was so excited to get back on the grass, as he said, and like to be with the team, and he was so into it. And yet, I don't know, was it that he was trying to force his scheme? Was he not really paying attention to what these guys do well, or was it literally just a down year? Like, was it an inevitable regression of an elite defense that is aging? Like, what, I mean, was that part of it? I don't know. I guess I'm curious about that. And knowing that they're not going to make a ton of changes on the defensive side of the ball, how then does Desai get them to play back to that potential? And even beyond, even like for a guy like Robert Quinn, like, dude, like make us realize why they gave you so much money. Like, come on, like it's not hard.
2 years of regression qualifies as a trend, right? And so Chuck had a system that obviously the Bears last year, for a good chunk of the year, it fell off a little bit in December, were really good on third down and really good in the red zone. And it was what they hung their hat on. And they were able to keep teams from scoring touchdowns. And you say, okay, we're in games because we're keeping teams out of the end zone. Vic had an ability to put his players in position so that they were in the end zone, right? And there was a 6 touchdowns, and there were the celebrations, and the takeaways were coming left, right, up, down, left, right. They were all over the place with the takeaways. And so, Dionne, what I think I learned in 2018 from the guys on that defense were that Vic had 2 things that elevated the entirety of the product. One, it was the ability during the week to prepare in a way where he understood the opponent inside and out and could easily and successfully communicate what he learned about the opponent to his players in a way where they had tips and knowledge that allowed them to play fast and free on game day. And then what you heard from a lot of players in that locker room was that Vic had a knack during games to just feel the flow of a game, know when to call something, know why to call something. And that once you get the success to sort of start snowballing, now all of a sudden there's trust and confidence from every single player on what you're calling and why you're calling it. And it just becomes a force. And it was a force in 2018. There's no question about it that was a special season on all levels, particularly defensively. And it was all because of what Vic was able to do to prepare, adjust in games, and connect with players in a way that allowed them to play fast and with confidence. And so that's Shawn's challenge, right? It's a huge challenge. You are not going to be Vic Fangio, who has, 30 plus years coaching in this league, in your first season as a coordinator. You're not, but can you get close to that? If so, all of a sudden you can take a defense that, oh, by the way, has Khalil Mack, has Roquan Smith, has Akeem Hicks, has Eddie Jackson, has Kyle Fuller. You've got playmakers. There are stars still on this defense. Now make them be stars, right? Khalil Mack has to reach double digits in sacks. Eddie Jackson has to record an interception.
Has to.
I mean, these are stars that need to be making star plays, and that's the challenge.
Did you have a crush on Vic too? I think you kind of did.
What I liked about Vic, and you might have heard it there in that very animated, energized response there, is that there was no nonsense with Vic. He was to the point, right?
So great. He was so great.
You didn't have to say a million words to get your message across. You just told it like it was, and we're very honest that, blunt to a fault at times, but blunt to a strength at times also, right? And I think that's what players really liked about it. Remember, Khalil Mack, that whole season in 2018 referred to him as an evil genius, right? And I think that was an apt description. And Vic has obviously earned that reputation over time. And now Shawn, with the privilege of sitting beside him for 4 years, and really for that 2018 year that was so special, hopefully has a binder full of notes that he took that year now that he can draw on.
It's telling to me how we all, Sam Acho is probably like the most animated, like he can't say anything without high energy and a big smile, but his endorsement, that resonated with me. And I think with a lot of fans too, because he said he is ready for this. I mean, he was all over the socials talking about, this is such a great move. This is such a great move. And so I feel like someone who is as intuitive in his people skills as Sam is, to say this is someone who can do what Vic was able to do as well. And I think that was really loud and clear, not just from a former player, but I think that that's how they feel within the room. And so I think that's what should make fans excited about bringing this defense back to the level with which they know they can play. But you're right. Like double digit sacks for Mac. We have to get something out of Robert Quinn. Like I keep saying we, like I'm out there. They have to get something more out of Robert Quinn other than decent sound bites and niceness. I mean, they need something more out of him on the field, and that didn't happen. And so this is very telling for him. Now, where do you see a lot, if any, personnel changes happening for this defensive roster?
Yeah, I mean, look, one personnel addition for 2021 that should be exciting will be the return of Eddie Goldman if he indeed does come back after opting out of last season due to health concerns with COVID-19. But I think you're going to have the same nucleus. I think you're going to have to try to add some young playmakers and some depth. You may need a new starting safety if they don't agree to bring Tayshaun Gibson back to start alongside Eddie Jackson. You may need to measure how much gas is left in the tank of Danny Trevathan and figure out what your depth at inside linebacker is. The other thing of this, Dionne, is that you mentioned Mike Pettine, but there's been turnover on the entire defensive coaching staff, right? Jay Rodgers is gone. Mark DeLeon is gone. Ted Monachino is gone. And so you have this same nucleus of players, but they're going to have to get familiar with a bunch of new assistant coaches in another offseason, which might be done a lot over Zoom. There might be a lot of virtual work and a lack of on-field work, and that's a challenge, and that's going to be hard for Sean Desai to try to move those pieces around and get everybody sort of connected and in sync when a lot of the work is going to be, again, over Zoom. And my fear is that year 2 of an offseason on Zoom, you lose a little bit of the attention span, right? I think everybody did it out of necessity in 2020, and now you're just kind of like staring at the computer screen like, we're still doing this, like, can we get together in person at some point and do something for real?
You have children, right? I mean, that's what e-learning has become, just staring at a screen, like no engagement. Oh my gosh. No, you're exactly right though. I mean, they have to find a way to personally connect over Zoom, but then also when they get on the field to have that be somewhat seamless. So that there is a challenge there. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. That's what right now is about, right? They clearly can't do anything outside. So hopefully they are spending a lot of time doing this and getting that dialogue going early, where the excitement that Desai has right now will translate it to the players to the point where when they do get back on the field, it's somewhat seamless. You know what I decided, Dan? I'm going to frame a picture of Vic Fangio, like right here. We can just put it in my house. And then we all know, like every time we chat, we can check in. What would Vic do?
What about a Vic fathead? Just like a
full now you're talking of him in his like sweatshirt and like his Bears pants and his I'm in. If you want to get that from me.
I don't know.
Fathead would sponsor us.
Vic always wore the sweatshirts, right? And it would be 86 degrees in Bourbonnais, and Vic would roll out to practice in the morning in that heavy gray Chicago Bears sweatshirt. And you're like, man, like this is nuts. But that was Vic, and Vic was who he was, and he put
evil
his
genius. Evil genius.
I'm getting you that fathead. I'm going to order that fathead.
I want it so badly now. I love it. Thanks, Dan. I'll thank you in advance.
Good talking with you.